We are Anka. Stay tuned for updated real news.
Hello, Anka Daily News viewers. Today we're going to analyze a new and remarkable development that could significantly affect the course of the war. As Russia's military operations in Ukraine prepare to enter their third year, the scope of the conflict is not limited to the battlefield. Casualties on the ground, dwindling resources of the armies, and economic problems exacerbated by international sanctions are making the cost of continuing the war more and more prohibitive. However, some recent moves signal a major shift in Russia's strategy on the ground. Moscow's difficulty in sustaining the war with its dynamic resources has become more evident with the latest support it has received. According to the latest information, North Korean troops have been deployed on Russia's front lines. This raises new questions about the course of the conflict. The deployment of North Korean troops to the region not only provides important clues about how the war will evolve, but also reveals that Russia is becoming increasingly dependent on foreign resources. However, there's a critical point here. Could the lack of combat experience of North Korean troops pose a serious risk to the Russian military? How effective these troops will be on the battlefield will become clear in the coming days. Can North Korea's unexpected intervention solve Russia's frontline problems, or will it further increase the uncertainty in the war? Along with Russia's supply chain crises and mounting military losses, what is the possibility of other countries' involvement in expanding the front lines of the war? Should North Korea's support be interpreted as an indication of the deepening of Russia's long-standing problems on the ground, or will it be a move that will change the course of the conflict? We'll analyze the background and possible consequences of these critical developments in detail. What does it say about the future of the war that Russia can no longer fight the war on its own resources and is seeking foreign aid? And could the problems of North Korean troops on the front lines be decisive in the coming weeks? Let's take a look at the behind the scenes of this interesting development. At a critical juncture in the Russia-Ukraine war, a new and unexpected development is taking place on the front line. Recent revelations by South Korea's military intelligence agency has raised allegations that a vanguard of North Korean troops has been sent to Russia. According to South Korean officials, it's highly likely that these troops were deployed to the front lines to support Russia's war effort. However, the experience of these troops and the uncertainties of war raise important questions about how much Russia can benefit from such a move. Some sources suggest that North Korean troops have already been sent to the front lines and have suffered significant losses. However, South Korean military intelligence has not yet been able to confirm the accuracy of these casualties. Allegations that these troops were first seen on the battlefield during the ongoing fighting in the Kursk region of Russia give an idea of the extent of North Korea's support for Russia. According to assessments supported by the US and Ukrainian intelligence, Russian forces in Kursk are struggling to repel the Ukrainian army's sudden interventions and are trying to catch their breath with reinforcements from North Korean troops. However, it remains unclear how these new soldiers will perform in combat due to their lack of experience. The deployment of North Korean troops directly into Russia's combat zones raises serious concerns not only about the military balance of the war, but also about their chances of survival. The lack of combat experience and unfamiliar geographical conditions could result in huge losses for North Korean troops. According to South Korea's intelligence agency, modern warfare conditions, in which drones are widely used, pose a serious obstacle for North Korean soldiers to adapt to. Moreover, these soldiers are neither trained to defend against drones, nor are they known to have the necessary technologies. The agency's officials predict that North Korean soldiers will not be able to cope with the modern technologies required by warfare, and many therefore suffer heavy casualties. The lack of combat experience of these soldiers selected from North Korea's Storm Corps, despite coming from elite units, may make it difficult for them to survive, especially in the intense conflict in Ukraine. Most of the soldiers North Korea has sent to Russia are in their early 20s, inexperienced and far from understanding exactly what they are up against. In 2007, Lee Woong-yi, who defected to South Korea and came from the same Special Forces unit, the Storm Corps, made important statements on this issue. Among these soldiers, they will consider it an honor to be selected to be sent to Russia. However, I think most of them will not survive this war, Lee said, adding that soldiers may want to volunteer to go to war, but this would have very severe consequences. Lee emphasized that these soldiers, who've grown up under pressure from the North Korean regime, will believe that going to Russia is not only a military mission, but also an ideological one. In their eyes, being sent to Russia could be seen as an opportunity to prove their loyalty to the regime. However, the chances of survival for these young soldiers who will be deployed in the hot conflict zones of the war seem highly unlikely. On the one hand, Russia's move is interpreted as the clearest indication that it's running out of resources with the prolongation of the war, and on the other hand, it reveals that it's increasingly in need of external support. Experts point out that North Korea's military support may not be decisive in determining how long Russia can sustain its war efforts. Disruptions in Russia's supply chain and mounting casualties on the front line have put enormous pressure not only on the Russian economy but also on its military capacity. It's unclear for now how North Korea's support will affect the course of the war. However, Russia's deployment of North Korean troops in the most risky areas shows that the Kremlin is desperate and is now looking for allies to share the cost of the war. This also poses serious risks for North Korea. The regime could face more international criticism if its troops suffer heavy casualties, which could deepen North Korea's isolation in foreign policy. At a time when Russia is increasingly struggling in its war against Ukraine, the appearance of North Korean troops on the scene creates a new dynamic in both the military and political dimensions of the war. But will this support determine the outcome of the war, or is it merely a reflection of Moscow's search for short-term solutions? The answer to this question will be determined by the news from the battlefield in the coming days. The ability of North Korean troops to adapt to modern combat conditions will directly affect the extent of Russia's advantage in the war. However, the conditions on the ground may make the lack of combat experience of North Korean troops even more pronounced, increasing the likelihood that they will suffer heavy losses in a short period of time. It's unclear how much the Kremlin's move will contribute to prolonging the war, but one thing is certain: Russia can no longer carry the burden of the war on its own resources and needs allies to share the burden. What do you think? What do you think will be the extent of North Korean losses in Ukraine? What do you think about the reports that the Russian army is losing strength? Let us know in the comments. We read and care about your opinions.